I have a goal this year of doing a stand-up comedy open mic.
Whenever I first started acting, I took improv classes.
I can imagine, like, you're acting, but at the same time, you are, in order to cry.
2020, I semi-retired. Going on a set and just moving lights around, moving wires around, running and getting coffee. Acting is the main thing.
I've never written anything, like, long, and I'm in zero control in that moment. There's nothing I can do.
If you have an idea about something that you want to do, don't talk about it.
Welcome to the Willpower Podcast.
Who's your teacher?
Shane.
Shane,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've only had 2 classes so far. That's why it kind of took a second to remember. But man, it's fun.
It is.
I've never done any kind of like acting, like no theater or anything. But I have a goal this year of doing a stand-up comedy open mic.
Oh, wow.
And then improv was another thing I wanted to try.
Yeah.
Kind of in just like the podcast vein of like, you know, being in the moment and
Sure. Yeah. Improv's great for that. Like it's why, you know, they go around to corporations and do improv stuff at corporations as well. It'll help you in setting up meetings and running meetings and just coming up with new ideas. I took them whenever I first started acting. I took improv classes specifically so that in my auditions, like whenever you do your audition, you're supposed to have like a moment before and a moment after whatever the audition thing is. And that's kind of like an improv moment that you have to come up with. Like, how are you entering into this scene?
Okay.
And I had a real hard time, like just coming up with something good. And so that was to help me just be able to think quicker. 4 levels at Hideout before I stepped away.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of like what you do isn't even, a lot of like the improv games are not even like acting or improv exactly. It's just like these like games to get you like, just like, what the fuck's going on? Like, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of it's all mind work, right? And all that stuff of you know, throwing, bit bop, whatever.
Yeah.
All that is just to get your brain firing faster. And to get to know like the people that you're working with and that you'll be working with in the class.
Right. And to get the like, almost to get you out of the way of yourself.
Sure.
Because like you can't overthink, oh, how is this going to look when you're like trying to bit bop as quick as you can.
Yeah. You have to be willing to make a fool of yourself.
Yeah.
And that stuff. It's terrifying for a lot of people. So you said stand up terrifies me. Like I don't
have you thought about ever trying?
Of course, I've thought about it, but like, and I've gone as far as start writing stuff down, think that I'll do it, and then the idea of actually going and doing it, just like it's different because like I'll take a class. I did a cabaret class, which required jokes and singing and dancing and storytelling, right? And so making a whole scene that incorporated all those people and crowd work as well. But the big difference is that I'm in a class with people that I know. Right. And so making a fool of myself in front of people that I know is pretty easy to do. Whereas going out into the world and doing it to like this small crowd at whatever the venue might be, where they're all just staring at you, that terrifies me.
Yeah. And there's something about like everyone is doing the same thing. Like we all like in the improv class, if one of us says something stupid, it's like, oh, that could have been me because we're all doing that. Or if you're in like I have a friend who was in the comedy scene and he started in college in a club, like a comedy club, and so they would practice together, and then like he built his way up off of that into actually doing clubs. And I feel like that's like almost the optimal way to do it.
You hear those stories of like old timer comedians that talk about when they start and like all their shows were just for other comedians, and so they're all just kind of practicing this stuff and giving each other a hard time for, you know, really bombing a joke or whenever they really got something right. Yeah, it's a great way to learn, but there's something to be said for being thrown into it. I think it's the coming up with your own material piece of it that just scares me so much. Yeah. Right? Like doing a play still in front of a crowd of people and they're all staring at you and they're all strangers, but I've got material that's already been written for me, and all I'm doing at that point is going out and playing a part of a story. That is easier for me than it would be for me just to stand up, be myself, and try and tell stories about my background and make those things funny or observations about things. What if they don't like my observation? Yes. They don't like me.
Yeah, that's one of the scariest things is it's almost like I heard this on a podcast one time where I think it was Joe Rogan was saying like to be a good comedian, like to get people to laugh, they have to like you. Mm-hmm. And so it's like you're going up there like, okay, please like me, like just trying to get people to like you. Because you're not going to laugh at someone if you're like, oh, I don't like this guy.
Yeah, it's true.
It just isn't funny then.
Yep.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I'll keep you updated if I end up. My next step is to like sign up, and I've been like every time I think about it, I get a little anxious, and I'm like, oh. But
the comedy scene here has blown up since COVID. So there's a lot of comedians moved here and kind of followed Joe here, and I guess Kill Tony is here now as well. Been here for a while. Tom Segura and his production stuff is all here as well.
Yep.
But it used to be 2 comedy clubs, if you counted Esther's Follies as a comedy club. There's Cap City and Esther's Follies, and that was really it. And then suddenly little ones start popping up, and the bigger ones started popping up, and so now there's tons of them.
Yeah,
and
yeah. There's so many.
I just come across, I'm like, I had no idea this was here.
Yep.
But I don't go out either. I'm old and got a kid, and I'll stay home. I'm good.
All right. So tell me about, like, off the top of your head, what's like one of the most profound acting experiences that you've had?
I'm going to give you plenty of dead air right here because that's a hard question. I would say there's a short that I did, and I got to play a sort of, it's not really fire and brimstone, but it's rapture. So like a preacher that really preaches rapture and that kind of stuff. And so stepping into that role, I'm Jewish, was raised Jewish, but stepping into a role of like a deep West Texas preacher who's preaching to his congregation about rapture and how they're failing and that they're probably going to get left behind. And then at the end of it, I recorded a video, and the video was intended for, it was found, and it's intended to be played by people who were left behind. And so it's effectively me saying to them, sorry, you got left behind. And so the idea, preaching all this stuff to my folks and then the people that get left behind, really not feeling like I have empathy for them as the folks that were actually left behind from the rapture. Like the rapture didn't happen in the short.
Right,
it's just like this is something that someone finds a video and plays it. But it was super interesting to me to try and enter into that world to understand it. I grew up in East Texas, so I grew up with plenty of fire and brimstone preaching and people who were really into that world. I had a buddy who was Pentecostal, and I went to his church a lot of times and just kind of experienced it. So I've got a lot of background in that stuff, but it's a world that I don't fully comprehend. I don't understand like where a lot of that comes from. So having to dig deep and find that type of character was a real interesting trip for me. Yeah.
How much preparation goes into a typical role? Is it like...
It depends on the role. Like I've had roles that are very much me, or like maybe an exaggeration of a part of my personality. And so those are a little bit easier to enter into the story. And as long as it doesn't require like major variations in emotion throughout the story, right? There's always gonna be variations in emotion, but if it's not major, then usually I can get into that character with just maybe a few days of preparation, depending on how much time I have leading up to the actual shooting. But the more time that I can have with it, it's always the better, right? Because I feel like the first time I read through it, I'm like, oh, I got this, I know this, and then I read it again and again and again. And by the 10th reading of the whole thing, suddenly I've got a completely different idea of where this person exists in that story, what their motivations are, what their goals are, and how they get to that end point of the story. Everything that I work on, requires multiple reads and multiple rereads of the material just to get myself to a place where I fully understand what it is. And then once I'm there, I can usually lock into it pretty quickly. I did a feature out in Atlanta at the beginning of February, and it was a lead role, and it required crying. It required a lot of anger. My wife had died, and so I was dealing with that. And then it required me getting tortured. And so there's still some stuff that needs to be finalized with the end of that, or with the making of that feature. But it was in order just to prep for the audition. I didn't have a long window. It was probably about 5 days that the audition was due, but it was a solid 3 days digging into that person, because my audition was at the graveside, talking to my wife's grave. And so finding that kind of emotion to be able to express on the screen, for the folks that I'm just offering what I have to get into it, it was very, very difficult. Mainly because in life in general, I'm not a super emotional person. I don't know, my wife may argue with that, but I don't feel like I have huge emotions whenever something happens. I'll have waves again, but yeah. So opening myself up to being somebody who had experienced that level of pain and was letting all this stuff out to my deceased wife it was really interesting. It was really hard to find myself at that place, and to especially cry as a part of it, because it's a very personal and private thing for most people, and it definitely is for me. And so opening myself up to being able to show that was a
because I can imagine, like, you're acting, but at the same time in order to cry, you have to be feeling something.
Yeah, I mean, there's a key separation, and acting coaches will say this. Different people will say this, right? You can act in something and you can get away with it, right? You could be a great actor in something and get away with it to show these certain emotions. But in order to really get into that story, you have to go beyond the acting, right? You have to let go of the acting part of it and stop pretending to be somebody else and actually be somebody else. The lessons that I've learned in the past, right, is creating that alternate reality. And when you step into that reality, you are gone, and you are embodying whoever that person is that makes up that reality, and you're experiencing whatever that person is experiencing in their reality, not just in the scene that you're in, but everything that they've lived and everything that they've experienced in their past all becomes a part of you as a person playing that role.
What have you learned about yourself through doing this?
That I have a lot of emotional blocks that are difficult to overcome. So whether it's past trauma based or whatever it might be, I haven't gone super deep to explore a lot of that. I've just kind of forced myself to let it go whenever I'm stepping into a new story. But yeah, whenever I first started doing it, I thought that it's easy. You just have to pretend to be somebody else. And then when you really start to experience life as somebody else, my brain fought against it real hard, because there are sometimes emotions that I have to experience that I don't want to experience. There are sometimes memories that have to exist that I don't want to have exist. Being able to figure out how to free myself from that, just to, like, I'm still going to have all my emotional hangups and everything else in my real life, but whenever I go into a new role within a story or playing a new person in that story, all that stuff, I had to be willing to let that go. And it was very, very, very hard. But yeah, it has allowed me to, I think, expand on the empathy that I've felt towards other people and what they experience. It has forced me to go back and look at the ways that I've reacted to things throughout my life. And yeah, just kind of figure out how can I do better at some of those things, right? If that makes sense. It is a weirdly therapeutic thing to be somebody else. And I generally try, if I'm stepping away from a role, that everything in that role, like I said, it's different reality. So when I step back into my reality, that person that I just was is gone. But it always bleeds over. Whether I'm bleeding myself into the role or that role is bleeding into me. So managing that is it's an interesting task sometimes. Sometimes I'm more successful than others. But yeah, it's a continual work in progress, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I could totally see that. I think a lot of what you're saying makes sense to me. Like, you're basically, like you mentioned, empathy, because you're basically stepping into someone else's shoes on the regular, and then I could see where outside of that, now you just have this kind of muscle built up of like, okay, this is what it's like to see the world from someone else's perspective.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's a good way, and by no means, right? I'm not like suddenly I'm this able to empathize real well with everybody, but it's something that like makes me more aware, if you will, why other people may react to things the way that they react. Does it mean that I always support the way they react? No, absolutely not. Does it mean that I try harder to understand why they? Yeah. So it is it's a very interesting muscle to create, and it's still very, very weak. It's just a child trying to kind of build its way up. And I feel like the more times I do it, it gets just a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger. Like anything, acting requires exercise. It requires a workout. Otherwise, that muscle atrophies. So that's what classes, or I'll do student films, other small projects, just to make sure that I'm still, if I'm not booking any major professional roles, then 100% I go back and do those things, because it gives me an opportunity to step into another world again and keep practicing that. And that way I don't lose it for auditions that I have to turn in, or whenever I do actually get a major role or minor role, and I'm able to step into something else.
So first, how long have you been acting? And then if you can go beyond that and talk about your progression. Okay. Like kind of what you're just talking about, but how have you gotten better? How have you noticed it?
Yeah. So I acted, I'll go back. I think in middle school, I did show choir, basically. It's what it sounds like. You sing and you put on a show. So singing and dancing, maybe a skit or two. That was very interesting to me. And then I took a speech class in 7th grade. And in that speech class, they gave us monologues and gave us and started stepping us into actual like acting. And so that was my real first introduction to it. And man, I ate it up. I loved it, everything about it. And so from that point on, in high school and a little bit into college, I was still doing it. So in high school, it was all plays, whether it was the high school plays or community theater plays. And then I, dropped out of college and bummed around for a little bit, then found my way into technology with the .com boom in the late 90s. And then I chased technology for 25 years, at least 23 years. Then in 2020, I semi-retired and kind of, again, bummed around for a little bit, and then thought, I'm going to give this a try again. And so it was like March of 2021, I started putting myself out there to try and do it. So it means that I've been doing this, attempting to do this professionally for 4 years, and it's definitely gone through some pretty extreme waves. Like I put my first profile out there. I think I talked about this thing on the promenade with Noah. I put myself out there and just put a couple of pictures from my social media up on Backstage. And within a couple of weeks, I had a call from somebody asking if I was available for a commercial. And I was like, man, this is easy. I got this. And so I thought, okay, let's get headshots. Let's get into classes. Let's do all these things that we were supposed to do. And then like reality of it hits. And I had a great time, a lot of fun, and booked a lot of really cool stuff. It got to a point where I kind of realized that if I want to move beyond regional commercials and smaller indie projects, that I have to be willing to step up in what it is that I'm presenting to people. And so that's when I started taking classes with Carol Hickey at Carol Hickey Acting Studio, which was very helpful because it alternated between scene study, so scenes from plays where you're acting against somebody, to on-camera work. And when I started there, it was you would do one a week. So you do the scene study, which was pretty much the same scene throughout the semester, but you would work on that one day, and then the next day you go do a scene for on camera and practice on camera. And so it forced you to kind of be willing to move from one thing to the next, just like you do as you get auditions that come in and as you have roles.
Like completely different scenes.
Yep, okay. Absolutely. So it'd be something from a play. 7-minute, 8-minute scene from a play, and then it would be Aaron Sorkin or it would be the procedurals. So a medical drama or a legal drama, something like that. Or maybe commercial stuff and then feature stuff, right? And so it'd be scenes from different things that you would have a week to prep it, and then you get up in front of the camera and do it. And the idea being that you get used to being in front of the camera, you get used to that style of acting versus the stage acting, which is, it's two completely different styles. The preparation work is the same, but the way that it's presented and what you have to be aware of as you do, it's very different. Just the idea of having to switch back and forth regularly was such a great practice to prepare me for whenever suddenly I had 3, 4, 5 auditions that have come in, and I've got to be able to prep all these things very fast and be able to alternate from one to the other and play different things very quickly and easily. So taking the classes helped me get to the place where I had a better understanding of that, and it didn't require quite as much like panic, I guess, on my part. I'm so overwhelmed with all this stuff, I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do, and then just give out half-assed work. It now allows me to recognize, okay, I'm going to focus on this, and then I can pivot to this, and then I come back to this, and then work on this other thing, right? And move back and forth before I actually go up and present it to the camera so that I can turn in whatever it is. As I've gone through it, I feel like early on I was a good actor, or maybe a good performer, right? And the more that I was able to absorb the concepts of it, then it allowed me to become I don't know the best way to say it, but when I say a better person, I don't mean like I'm finding myself as better, but to be able to step into a story to play a person better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it allows me the ability to step in and to understand the world that I'm stepping into. So that's just a constant, and I'll never be at a place where I feel like I'm good at it. You know what I mean? It's every time I do it, I'm like, wow, that was pretty good. And then I'll do it again, or I'll do another one later. I'm like, wow, that's even better. And so it's this constant, like, hopefully an evolution that I'm able to get better and better and better each time I go through it. It has helped me get to a place where I understand people in the story. I understand them better, and I'm able to understand them a little bit quicker. But it's still, like I said, it requires multiple times of me going through it and reading it and rereading to finally get to a place where something will click in my head and I'm like, oh, I see who this is. And then I can feel comfortable in stepping into it. I can always see it in my auditions. If I don't fully believe in the story I'm telling, I can 100% see it. And it's frustrating, and I may have to turn that in because the acting is fine. From an acting perspective, it looks good, but I can see it like in my eyes. I can see it in some of my reactions that I'm just playing the scene. I'm not in the scene.
You're still Joe doing the thing that this person would be doing.
Yeah, just pretend Joe pretending to be this instead of Joe becoming this. Yeah, it's a very interesting thing. And being able to separate yourself. There's a lot of people who talk about it, they can't stand watching themselves. And once I have a finished product, I feel very weird watching myself.
What's that experience like?
Well, it's all, you've heard it a million times. It's like you watch yourself and you critique everything about it. All right, it's like, oh yeah, I can see I'm faking right there. I can see I'm completely out of it, just playing. I'm just doing my best to get through that scene. Why did I turn that direction? That doesn't make any sense. Or hold your hands down. Why are you doing this weird? Stop doing that. So yeah, certainly over-critique myself whenever I watch this stuff. But then we talked before about the difference between like the creative part of the business and the business part of the business. And as long as I can separate myself and look at it from an outside point of view, like from the business side of it, and actually give a objective review of what it is that I'm doing, so I can be like, okay. So in general, this all looks good. And it's a very good job. There are parts of it that I know next time I'm working on something that I need to make sure that I'm focusing on these things and not putting my hands up or crossing my arms or doing whatever it might be. Or whenever I'm reacting to somebody, If I can see myself react faster than their line, so it means I'm anticipating whatever is it's coming. Just recognize you got to let that go. And you're talking to somebody, even though you know all the lines, you don't know what they're going to say, right? And it has to be real that you don't know what they're going to say. You just know where you need to go, and it's a tricky thing. It allows me to, if I can separate that, whenever I'm watching myself, that's very, very helpful.
Do you ever, the roles you play, are they often completely scripted, or is there ever like leeway?
Pretty much all of them at this point have been completely scripted. There's generally in this, like at the level that I am, generally the stuff that I'm going to get, there's going to be some leeway that's in it, and there's going to be some ask on the day to not necessarily like fully improv or improvise the scene. You don't really want that. You still want to at least honor the writer in it. But if I'm moving words around or I have sentences that maybe get transposed as I'm saying them, generally that's fine, as long as like what I'm saying doesn't throw off something that's going to happen later on in the story. Exchanging an A for a the, right? So if I talk about a story versus the story, right, it's a very different way to look at something, because the story is specific. A story is just a story. Right. So there's little things that maybe become more important whenever I do it. But in general, there's a lot of leeway that's given from most of the folks that are around here. Commercials will be different. Commercials are usually very specific. If you have lines, it's very specific what they want you to say, because it's all about marketing and presenting the product in the best way possible. Sometimes you get lucky and you get a little bit of room to play on those sets and have some fun. Most of them are fun anyway. Commercials can be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they have a script that has been run through all the creatives within the company and within the creative agency that you're working with. And so those are the words that you need to say.
Right.
And
they paid good money to come up with those words.
You can't deviate too far. Around here, commercials are what allow you to keep acting, allow you to keep doing the narrative work, allow you to keep allow me to keep writing, keep trying to produce my own stuff. It's the commercial work that does it, because that's what really pays, at least here. I'm sure that there are other areas that if you can get on series and stuff, those start to pay a little bit better, especially on the back end. So you get residuals depending on the project. And so it becomes a continuous revenue stream as compared to a singular revenue stream.
So we talked briefly before this about your the script that you wrote.
Yep.
And remind me the name.
It's called Good Bones.
Good Bones.
Yep.
Okay. Is your goal to kind of just like do more things in the same industry, or what? Like,
I want to do everything. Okay. Every part of it inside of the entertainment industry. Every part of it. Casting. I'd love to do casting. It seems so much fun to me to be able to see what other people bring to the story and try to show you, and the different perspectives each one of them are going to have. I love that. Producing. I like the idea of producing. I don't have enough background, enough knowledge to really know what all goes along with it besides like putting up money. But I would love to learn more about that. I've been lucky enough to direct a few of my own things, so playing there. But man, going on a set and just moving lights around, moving wires around, running, getting coffee, that kind of stuff, just being involved in the industry, the creative industry, is something that screams to me. And it's something that if the more parts of the industry I can be involved in, the happier I am. Or let me say, the more satisfied I am. You know what I mean? It's all of that. Acting is the main thing. That's what I like to do. It is probably at this point the most creatively satisfying. Writing, whenever I'm done, is incredibly creatively satisfying. Writing while I'm doing it is torture. Yeah,
it can be a struggle.
Yeah, and because there's so much second guessing of how something should be said or how a particular scene should be structured, and it's exhausting, and it's one of those things that If I don't force myself to do it, then I'll just set it to the side and never do it. So I have to set up a very strict regimen. If I'm in writing mode, then I have to do a certain number of pages a day, and then I have to either write a certain number of pages or edit a certain number of pages every single day in order to continue that story going, or else I'll just get to a point where I'm just like, I'll get the auditions that are given to me and I'll work on that for a while.
Okay, let's talk about this more then. Let's talk about writing mode.
Yeah.
Because I like this. Because I've never written anything like long, I guess I would say. I like try to journal. I'm trying to write jokes right now, but I would like to one day. But I've heard, for authors, this is like their number one struggle. Is like, how do I just get myself to sit down and write? And so you mentioned when you're in writing mode, it takes a regiment. So what exactly does that look like?
So, and I don't want to put this out there like I've written a whole bunch of stuff, right? It's a handful of shorts and a feature and a few episodes of a series, right? So that's pretty much what I've written. But so I'll give it for writing of Good Bones, right? It took me the writing of the final first draft of Good Bones took me almost a year to get that full feature all the way written. And the activity or the action that was required of me for that was every day I had to write 5 pages. Every day. It didn't matter the quality of the pages that I wrote. It didn't matter. But it was just sitting down and at least 5 pages had to be written. However long that took me, those 5 pages had to be done. And once I got to a certain point, then it became I had to write 5 pages and I had to edit at least 3 pages. And so what that means is that I would write a section of new stuff, or I would go through and I would edit what I had already written and grab sections of it and just throw it away. Be willing to just let it go and then come back in and write until I had written back up to 5 total pages for that day. And some days I would throw out 20 pages after I'd gone through and be like, this whole scene doesn't make any sense, and just throw the whole thing away. And then sit down and try to figure out where my story's going, and this scene with these characters, why are they there? What's the point of this scene? Occasionally I'll throw a scene in that doesn't really have a whole lot of point. It's just something that I like the idea of the imagery of it, or I like the interactions that those people may be having. But from the grand arc of the story, it doesn't have a lot. It's just humanizing them, right? But yeah, it was, I would go out, I would find a quiet place, and I would sit down and put on my headphones and just start going. And until I reached that point, I wouldn't stop. Even if that meant sitting there staring at it for an hour and trying to figure out what it is I can do, I would go back and start from the beginning and read it all the way through, and then read it again, and then read it again. And each time I read it, I find something else, and I'm like, this part is extraneous, or I need to explain, I've got this thing that's happening here, maybe this is a red herring that I'm pointing people in a different direction, and so let's see if we can't expand on that a little bit and build that part of the world out. But doing it that way was really interesting, because I had my outline for what I wanted the story to be, and then the final version that I had was completely different than what the outline was, because I would start writing it and I would get to a certain point and something would happen with one of the characters in what I was writing, and it would create another branch. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let's see where that branch goes. And so now suddenly I've got this other part of the story that I hadn't thought about before. And now it's changed. Like where I was going, I could maybe still get back to it, but man, how to get there, it throws everything out there. And when that happens, then it's suddenly like that creative, like it snaps something, and suddenly you've got this new creative juice that starts to flow, and you start going down that way. And it's weaving your way through it is pretty interesting. So I have a group of folks that I work with for writing. I need to set up new meetings for that, but the idea is to get together, pitch new ideas, everyone figure out which of those new pitches they like, and then take those pitch ideas and go and write a short script for it. So come up with 3 new sketches every week or every 2 weeks, and then start filming those. That's the idea of the process. And throughout, so you come in with the idea, you write the idea, and you hand it off to everybody to read it for feedback and see what the group thinks. And then take some of the feedback they give you, ignore others, whatever it is, and then rewrite it and present it back and see if that's good enough for a final draft. And if it is, then great. And we put it into our little locker of active scripts, and then we decide which ones we want to film. The cool thing about doing it that way is when you have 5-6 people that are all kind of working to the same goal, and you're pitching new ideas, and you start to discuss inside those stories, man, you can start to really bounce off of each other. You feed off of each other, and those ideas start to become either really silly and ridiculous, or they start to get really good. And it's a lot of fun to try and write that way, where you have a bunch of people that you can write with. So it's two very different methodologies of getting to the same place.
Yeah, and I think both are important. And this goes for not just writing, but in general. Like I've found that with, if I have a business idea or something out, or I'm like, brainstorming about the podcast, whatever it is, I gain a lot from sitting down by myself and just like being quiet and just like working on it. Mm-hmm. But then there's also the other side of it, which is like, I have one good friend who like will be working out and just like talking about something the whole time. And like, I have like neurons firing and like whole new ideas that I never would have thought of without this kind of like line of conversation going.
Yeah.
So I think both are like so powerful, and like being able to harness both of those ways of working.
I think it's how you want to come at it, right? I think having somebody that you can creatively feed off of is crucial. Trying to do all of it by yourself, you can torture yourself to a place where you don't want to do it anymore. For Good Bones and the writing of it, whenever I finished my first draft of it, I handed it off to people and said, give me some feedback on it. And they give me the feedback, and some of the feedback I took, and some of the other feedback I was like, nah, I don't think so. And then I did the table read for it. And once I was able to hear it outside of my head, now this advice, this feedback that was given to me before makes sense. And I can kind of conceptualize what it is that they were coming to me with. And like, okay, I get that now. I understand what you were saying. Because a lot of times when you write, it's your baby, and so it's really hard to give up on like, no, this is a crucial idea. And it's not that you need to get rid of the idea. It's just how you present the idea. And so once I did that, then I did a full rewrite and handed it off to other people to read, to get some feedback on that next one. And so I went through, I think, 3 or 4 rounds of doing that with people, to get that feedback from them and sit down and talk with them about it, question. After I did the first round, it became very important to actually sit down with people who were giving me feedback on it so that I could question them of what they meant. Because I think the first one I just did it by email and said, just tell me what you think. And I got a bunch of stuff back. And then it went from that to, here are 5 questions that I'd like for you to focus on and give me the kind of your answers within these 5 questions. And then we would talk about the answers that they gave so that I could understand it better. And again, it still comes back to some of that feedback I absolutely took and did rewrites based on it. Others of it, I understood what they were saying. I didn't agree with it and didn't necessarily change the story to accommodate that feedback. Mm-hmm. Right or wrong, that's the thing about feedback is it's someone else's opinion of it, and ultimately you're going to decide whether you agree with that opinion of what they're telling you, or if you're going to stick with what you've said and just kind of absorb the feedback that they've given.
Yeah, it's a saying I really like is you should always listen to advice, but you shouldn't always take it.
Yeah.
And I think, there's a lot of power in being able to, okay, I hear that completely, but I'm still going to go my way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and, obviously tactfully and not being like, no, you're wrong. That's dumb. I'm not doing that.
Right.
It's not the best way to handle stuff. But
not if you want to keep
if you want to
the
keep
relationship going
if you want
in
to
the
keep
future.
getting feedback from that person or maintain some sort of a friendship with them for a long term. Yeah. But I've been lucky with the people that I've been able to work with, whether it's been on the original short that was associated with Good Bones, or in writing the feature, to everyone that read it and gave me feedback on it. All been incredibly kind and very supportive, and a lot of really great ideas and a lot of really cool stuff that I was able to use in making that script even better.
Where do you put out, is there like a business model around just putting out stuff on YouTube, short films? Or how does that work?
Yes, there is. I don't know what it is.
Okay, so you don't do that at all.
We do. We don't really monetize like the shorts that we've done. We haven't really monetized them.
Okay.
We have a group. It's called Silk Road Comedy, and the stuff that we make, we'll submit it around to different local and regional festivals, just to get some play on it, and then we'll put it up on our YouTube site for anyone to really go and see. I'd love the idea of monetizing at some point, especially with the writers group that I'm working with now. My thought process on that is that it becomes like a Kids in the Hall or a Monty Python-esque sketch kind of thing. We'll see if that happens, but something that is on a regular schedule. We've got a series of new sketches that are somehow connected, whether it is just they cross by each other as we cut from one to the next, or if there is some sort of a actual connection that exists in the story to transition from one sketch to the next. I don't necessarily just want like the Saturday Night Live model, which is have a sketch, go to commercial, have a sketch, go to commercial.
Right. Without any connection.
Yeah, like Kids in the Hall and Monty Python, all their sketches like crossed into each other. And so Kids in the Hall less or so, Monty Python always. Like it would just be they didn't always know how to end a sketch, and so they would just walk into the next sketch. And so it's just a continuous thing that went through, which I thought was incredible. Now they may have done like the animation interstitials to transition from one thing to the next when they really didn't have a good way to do that. But whenever they would just go from the silly walks and cross over into whatever the next sketch was, and all it is the guy doing the silly walk goes through the background as these new people are coming into the front. But that transition into the next sketch, it was such an incredible idea to me, making everything tie together somehow so it is all one singular world that all this stuff exists in. I like that idea, and I like the idea of trying to figure out how to take completely different sketches and tie them together so you can have like 3-4 sketches in a row that just all kind of flow from one to the next real smoothly, so there's not a big interruption.
Right.
I think that if we are able to accomplish that, and we do start putting this out on a regular schedule, whether it's on YouTube or if we get somewhere else, then it takes away, if you don't give that break, then it takes away the likelihood that people are going to turn it off and go do something else. But if you fade to black, then there's an easy stopping point.
Yep. I've never even thought about that kind of thing. But it makes perfect sense. If you have the commercial break, that's the stopping point. It's like, okay, I finished that thing. That thought's over. Yep. I don't have any like loose threads in my head.
And if what you're doing is funny enough, then that commercial break's still not going to stop him from watching the next thing to see what comes. But if you do have something that struggles,
or just going to keep those people who are on the edge of like, oh, this is all right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's right now it's just a thought, and we're still kind of in the infancy of the writer's room for Silk Road Comedy. And because I was gone for pretty much all of February, the meetings were put on hold for that time. So they're just starting back up. And hopefully we'll be able to have something. My original hope had been by the end of March, we would have something that we had produced and we're ready to put out. I think that we're probably a little late on that. So probably not. But if we can get something filmed in March, I'll be very happy. I want to at least have one thing filmed every month. I would love to get to a place where we can have 3 or 4 things filmed, so we can put out an actual show, if you will, every month. How
hard is it to put together like a good production for something like this? Like obviously not like top level, but just like good enough.
Yeah, I mean, so from good, what do I know from good? It depends. So I will say it depends on who you are and how you manage stuff. So I, because of the way my brain works, in order to keep me on track, I've got to have stuff very specifically outlined of what it is that I want to accomplish. So I'll be very detailed of what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. Other people are able to kind of just fly by. Right, they know in their head what they want to accomplish. They communicate that to people. They share that information with people, and then they're able to go out and do it. My prep work, whenever I do something, it's usually, again, I'll go back to the short for good bones. Whenever we were leading up to that, to the actual filming of that, I think I did probably 2 solid weeks of just prep work, prepping myself for everything that's going to need to be done for it. And that included putting together all my shot lists and getting the pictures of what it is I want to film, what I want each shot to look like, a storyboard. So getting together my shot list, getting together my storyboard for everything, and kind of organizing everything that I want to make sure happens on the day. So I probably spent a good 2 weeks just prepping that work before I really brought anybody else in to discuss what it was we wanted to do. And once I did that, we were able to kind of figure out, okay, this is the order that we want to make sure everything happens in. Here are our dates. Here's where we're going to be doing it. I probably put more on my back than I needed to, but that's just how my brain works for this stuff. There have been other folks that I've done stuff with that, 2 days in advance, they'll come and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. And we're going to film it on Friday and Saturday. And then we go film on Friday and Saturday and we get it done. Usually you're an hour or 2 over schedule. And, you'll wind up a few $100 over budget, depending on what the budget is. Good Bones was a fiasco. Everyone did a great job that worked on it. But we are all very amateur. That was a lot of volunteers were working on it. And I tried to use some lighting effects that did not work. So once we actually got the final footage, I was like, I don't think we can use this. But I have a friend who took it and was able to really rework it. We switched it to black and white, and we were able to shift levels within the pictures to make stuff come forward and create some depth on some images that were very, very flat because of the lighting. And it's not perfect, but it turned out pretty good. And so each one of those is a learning experience. Mm-hmm. Each one that you go into, you learn something on that one, and take those things that you learn to the next one and apply. And you're going to find stuff on that one, and things are going to go wrong. It's just as long as you're keeping up with the stuff that goes wrong and figuring out the next time that you do it, how do I get around that, or what do I need to have prepared in order to make sure that if that does happen again, we're able to just keep going without interruption.
Yeah, that's like Mr. Beast, his advice for like being successful on YouTube. He's like, just make 100 videos and each one just improve one thing.
Yeah.
Just get a little bit better on each one, and by the end you'll be making awesome videos.
Yeah, I mean he's if you're gonna follow a model, right? He's done pretty well
That's
for himself.
The YouTube one.
On the YouTubes. So
yeah, he's intriguing. I'm like, he's a very cool story.
Yeah. To just have was the Beast Games that they did, and the production that had to take part.
Yeah.
That everything that had to be done in order to accomplish what they were trying to accomplish with that is incredible, considering it's just a dude who started making videos.
Yeah.
And they got popular. And so he's able to add more and more to his team that makes his stuff better and better and better. He was able to learn from stuff he'd done in the past. Probably the biggest thing, right? All kinds of people will tell you all kinds of things about how to be successful. I would argue that the biggest thing is just learn from what you've done. If you're not willing to learn from things that either you've done in the past or things that you've seen other people do in the past, then you don't ever advance. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what methodology you use to do that, as long as you're willing. So whatever works for you, to be able to recognize it and apply it, great. As long as you're able to do it.
So the learning from doing, and then prioritizing doing as well.
Sure.
I think a lot of people, myself included, I get stuck in inaction and just overly wanting to do something, planning on it, thinking about it, but not doing it.
There was there's a podcast called The Nerdist that was around 2000s, 2010s. Mm-hmm. It was Chris Hardwick and Jonah Ray, Matt Myra were the 3 mains that were on. And I forget which one of them talked about it. It may have been Jonah Ray. He's a comedian. It may have been him that said it. And it's something that always stuck with me. And if you have an idea about something that you want to do, don't talk about it. because talking about it gives you some satisfaction, like you've accomplished something in moving that thing forward, right? So don't talk about it unless you are doing. So if you're doing, then yes, you can talk about it some, but don't just talk, because you get stuck in that pattern of talking about doing this thing, and every time you talk about it, you feel like you've done something, and so it gives that little bit of satisfaction. And then eventually get to a place where saying you're going to do this thing, whatever it was, it's not relevant anymore. And now you've never actually accomplished anything. So it's a thing to fight against, because you get this idea that you think's really cool, and you really want to share it, and really want to, make people hear about this idea that you have that's going to be the coolest thing ever. But in doing that, you can sometimes put yourself into, like, you don't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different than inaction. But it's still, your brain reacts to stuff in very strange ways. And so if you give it that little bit of satisfaction, it's going to pop that dopamine out there, and you're going to get that hit and be like, yeah, cool. All right, I did that for today.
Yeah, you're tricking your brain
Yeah.
into thinking you're doing something.
Yeah, but it was such a revelation to me whenever I heard that. And I was like, it makes perfect sense to me. It's why I never took the leap to do any of this stuff before. Right? I would talk about, be like, yeah, maybe someday I'll go back and try acting again. I think that'd be fun. Or, yeah, I think I might sign up for classes. And so it gives me that little in the back of my head. And then, 2 years later, still haven't done it. And until finally I did it. And, I owe a lot of that to my wife, being able to just do it, because she was very encouraging. She encouraged me to quit my job. Anxiety and everything that was coming along with that job at that point was incredibly difficult. But whenever I said, I want to give this acting thing a try, go for it. And she's been very supportive throughout the entirety of the process. So very, 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 very lucky to have somebody like that.
Yeah. On that note, so you mentioned you have a kid. How has your life changed?
Having a kid?
Since having a kid, yeah.
Oh, man. Having a kid's hard. Everyone will tell you that. It's not nearly I don't think it was nearly as bad like whenever she was a baby, as everyone makes it out to be, the lack of sleep and all that stuff. Yeah. When they get their own personality and start to stand up for themselves within that personality, it's very hard, because leading up to that point, you've had this little thing that has depended on you 100%, and you've been able to tell it what it needs to do, and whatever. I'll say her instead of it. You've been able to tell her what she needs to do, and then she gets her own personality, and she's like, no, I don't want to do that. No, but I just told you to do that. It doesn't compute. But that sounds awful, like I'm trying to control the kid, but it's such a weird switch when you move from helpless to independent. Right. But she's absolutely incredible. The first point that she could recognize things, just amazing to watch, amazing to experience. Watch how her brain picks up stuff and starts to put the different puzzle pieces of life together. Watch how she stands up for herself and what she believes in, as she starts to form those kinds of opinions. The way she'll stand up for other people. Right? As frustrating as it is when you're like, we just got to get ready for bed. All we got to do is get ready for bed. Let's just get ready for bed. As frustrating as that part of it is, everything else that comes along with it is so cool. It's so cool. Like watching her change. She's 10, almost 11. And so, she's like fully herself. I mean, she'll still become more of herself as she gets older and find more and more about her, but she's 100% this independent, thoughtful being, which is incredible to think that coming from like this little bitty helpless thing to that, it's wild. You don't comprehend it in your own life. Like your parents will tell you about it and you're like, nah, whatever. But to experience it is crazy. It makes you regret the way that you may react to things. Every parent is just doing the best they can, and they're going to make mistakes, and sometimes they're going to make big ones. And they're going to say things that they fully, immediately regret. And they'll say stuff out of frustration that is not is not as supportive as it should be. But having that kid having her forces me to recognize that and to acknowledge it whenever I do it and be willing to apologize to her and to explain to her why I may have reacted the way that I did. Yeah, it's such a weird experience because there's nothing else like it in life that you will experience. There's nothing else like it. It's a singular experience. Now I only had the one. So, there are people with 2, 3, 4, 5 kids that maybe it's different. And they get past their first one. They've learned some of those lessons on their second and third. And my wife and I were faking it and doing the best we can to help this person grow into a, independent and thoughtful, caring. We're pretty lucky because it seems like she just naturally is empathetic to others and cares about what happens to others. More than she cares about what happens to herself. So I think that we're pretty lucky that she has that attribute. But she's also stubborn. Will certainly stand up whenever she needs to. And it's hard because you're not used to someone just flat out saying no. It continues to teach lessons, and it's helpful. Like obviously in what I'm doing, it's helpful. So it's a lot of roles. At my age, most of what I get is dad. I'll be getting like grandfather before too long. And yeah, going through that experience obviously helps guide me. When it comes to those kinds of roles and stuff. I'll take that as well.
Yeah. I think you mentioned like winging it. I think that's like one of the things becoming an adult that is like a defining moment for a lot of people,
yeah.
Which is when you realize that your parents were winging it.
Yeah.
And so I'm 24, so I want to have kids, but I'm not at that point yet. But that's something I'm realizing is like my parents were not that much older than me right now when they had kids.
Yep.
And yeah, it's not like they had some like, oh yeah, this is how you have kids. This is how you do it.
Yeah. I mean, everyone was Dr. Spock back then. That's not going to, I don't know if you know, there's a book on raising kids by Dr. Spock. It's not Spock from Star Trek.
Different Dr. Spock. Okay.
Not Spock from Star Trek, but that was like the big book, I guess, like during my parents' generation. I'm assuming I'm probably pretty close to your parents' generation. If not, so I'm 49. So I'm guessing I'm reasonably close or...
Yeah, they're like 10 years older.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Whenever we were kids, that would have been like the child raising handbooks that people read and tried to learn from. Nobody knows. Yeah. Nobody knows. I would argue even if you do have 5 kids, once you get to that 5th one, you still don't know because it's a completely different person and is going to act completely different than all of them that have come before. So more tricks and hopefully more patience, but man, you still don't know how it's going to go. It is because every year is different. Every week is different. What is amazing one day is going to be just the next. So keeping up with it all is pretty crazy. But yeah. Once I realized it about my parents as well, that they just made it up as they went along. Like a situation's put in front of them, and it's like, all right, how do we deal with this? Mm-hmm. And sometimes they did it really well, sometimes they didn't. And it's not that they didn't out of any kind of malice. It's just that they made a choice, and maybe that choice wasn't the best one. You learn from it, and you figure out and try and make sure you don't do that again.
Yeah, I think with like the institution of marriage, it feels like, okay, if you're married and then you have kids, like somehow that prepares you, even though it has nothing to do with like
not
kids
even,
part.
Yeah,
like,
not even kind of related.
Yeah.
They're not. Neither are required. Are a requirement of the of each other.
Right.
You have if you are in a relationship, whether it is marriage or just a partnership or whatever the relationship you may be, as you co-parent a kid, you just have someone else that you can try and learn with. You know what I mean?
That's always what it is. It's just, you have one other person and we're figuring this out.
Yeah. That's really what it's offering. I mean, you've, as compared to someone who is doing it on their own, you do have potentially a built-in support system for yourself. right? So if things get really, really rough and really emotional, you have someone else that's there that you can share those things with, right? And so that's a big deal, as compared to someone who doesn't have that kind of relationship. So that's a big difference in having the partnership versus doing it on your own. So yeah, like I said, I'm lucky that I do have my wife, and we're able to discuss it, or discuss different issues and try and figure out what the right way is to handle it, and have disagreements about it, and try to come to some kind of consensus between the two of us on the best way to move forward. Hopefully you do enough. Hopefully you do enough to make a well-rounded, good human being. Make is probably the wrong way of saying it, but raise, I guess. I don't know. Just guide them to
cultivate the environment for them to.
Yeah, hopefully they become a good person.
Yeah, it's funny. My closest even way of relating is with my dog. And when you were talking about your daughter with her stubbornness, I will take my dog out, and she's so pumped, and she's like excited to go out, and like, you know, and it's similar. Like I feed her. It's like, oh, it's this thing I take care of. Yeah. And then I will take her. There's this pond in my neighborhood, and there's a path that goes around it, and it's a pretty big, wide open area. And so I'll let her off the leash, and she'll be running around, having a great time. And I walk around the pond, and then a couple laps go by, and I'm like, okay, maybe time to head back now. And so I'm like, Reba, come on. And she'll kind of run around me, but like not too close. And then I start walking towards the way we go back, and I'm like, Reba, we gotta go. Like I gotta put you back on the leash. And she'll kind of like run up to me and like, and like run away. And then she'll like run close and like juke around me. And like, I'm like, what the hell? Like, I took you on this walk. What do we like? You have to come with me.
Ungrateful monster.
Yeah. And it's so funny because that's like, you know, her version of personality is like, no, I want to fucking run around. I want to keep doing this. I don't want to go home.
Yeah.
And I'm in zero control in that moment. There's nothing I can do. I cannot catch this dog. I can like chase her as much as I want, and she will just make me look silly. Like there's.
It's true. It's different.
100% different thing.
You know, but it's comparatively, it's a reasonable comparison, because you take your kid to the park, and the kid runs around. The kid, whenever they're small enough, they will run around for hours. Doesn't matter how tired they get. They will run until they literally fall down and fall asleep. Just what they'll do. Because their brains aren't developed enough to know, I'm really tired and you stop now.
Yeah.
They just keep going until they're done. And so taking the kid to the park, like you have an hour really available just to go out to the park and play and run around and that kind of thing. And when that hour's up, you're like, we got to go home. And it's either a fight and they run around, or it becomes a meltdown because they don't want to leave the park. You just got to be willing to sit with it and just accept. Now, don't. When I say this, I am probably more often than not unsuccessful at being able to do this. But just sitting with it and waiting for that kid to figure it out and come to you and be like, okay, it's time to go. So I get it. It's got to be the same like with the dog, right? Eventually, if you just decide to go and sit down on a bench somewhere, that dog's just going to come walking up to you.
Yeah.
And it's going to accept it. And it'll be the same way with the kid. You'll let them run, and if you try and force them to do it, but if you sit and let them come to it on their own, you know, maybe it takes you an extra 10, 15 minutes than you expected. You don't have a fight, and you don't have a meltdown. You don't have anything else. But again, like I said, I am probably more often than not unsuccessful at being able to do that. Yeah, unfairly, for sure, but...
Yeah, no, human children are not the same as dogs. I posted a YouTube short from a past episode, and it wasn't even like the guest I had on was just talking about how he wanted to raise his kids, and then at the end he mentioned like something about dogs. Yeah. And someone commented like, kids are not dogs. And it's like, obviously, yes, we know that.
Obviously, kids are not dogs, and it is a much different dynamic.
Yes.
Raising a kid as compared to raising a dog. But if you cannot draw some
there are
parallel comparisons, then you're not paying attention. Because there are some. Absolutely, there are some.
And especially, you know, I don't have the experience of raising children. This is the closest thing I have.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But I mean, it was a dumb comparison. No. No, it's they say dogs are like cognitively like 3-year-olds, right? And someone's going to complain about me saying that. That's not true, but that's from what I understand, right? Just cognitively, they're like a 3-year-old. So you should kind of expect reactions are going to be similar whenever you have someone that is just beyond toddler age, running around doing stuff.
Yeah.
That their
And a
reactions
toddler that can run like 20 miles an hour.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Very different. Very different. But the reaction to, okay, time to go, it's going to be very, very similar. It's going to be very similar. And it definitely changes as they get older. The comparisons change as they get older. Like I would never compare my daughter to a dog now. But when she was a toddler, sure. It's a reasonable comparison. Even though there are definitely difference in human children are not dogs or cats or maybe possums. I don't know how that works. But
It's the closest.
yeah, I don't. Possums are supposed to be very smart.
All right, Joe, let's change gears again. So
Okay.
what is something you are currently struggling with?
So right now, I'm probably struggling hardest. My confidence in the industry, everything is ups and downs, right? So you're going to have some pretty major upswings, big stuff happening. For the last month, I had a bunch of really good successes. For about 5 months before that, I did not. Nothing seemed to be hitting. I wasn't booking, and it was starting to get really kind of scary. And so I think right now I am still working to prevent myself from becoming overconfident because I had a positive month, while not allowing myself to slip into like the crisis of confidence of not having anything happen for 4 or 5 months.
Right.
Recognizing that in the industry, it's not always how good a job you do with your performance that's going to determine whether you book something or not. How good a job you do is going to get you in the door, and it's going to get you in there for consideration. But recognizing that it could be that they have brought a kid on that has dark eyes and dark hair, and so I wouldn't fit as the father of that kid. Or someone of a different race, and it wouldn't make any sense if I were to try and play the whatever the relationship is to that role. Or they've already brought someone on that is blonde hair with blue eyes, and they don't want to have too many people that look the same. But staying confident in the idea that I know what I'm doing and that I am giving my best in whatever it is that I'm handing out for people to look at, just making sure that I stick with that. That is the biggest thing that I'm struggling. I mean, other than, like money and everything's the things that you normally have to kind of struggle with. But if I'm saying like existentially, that is and it's ongoing, is probably from an actor's perspective the biggest thing that you have to struggle with. That's probably where I'm at right now, is just making sure that confidence, that I am confident in knowing that I know what I'm doing and I'm pretty good at it. And that eventually, if I keep turning in quality, that it's going to click.
It's like smoothing out this like these peaks and valleys into just like a constant baseline of
Yeah. And I have zero expectation that in this chosen profession that I will ever be at a place where it's smooth sailing. I could book the lead in a Marvel film tomorrow, and I won't. But I could. And I could work that and then not get anything else for 3 years. And so that's a hell of a peak and then a major trough right after, right? And whatever I'm making that Marvel film, that's however much I have until the next thing comes along. And recognizing that it's not because my lack of ability.
Right.
Right.
Yes. And so the smoothing is more of you regulating your own confidence.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it is. Just making sure that, I don't get to a place whenever I have a lot of successes that I'm like, I got this. I got this. And then turn in shitty work because I'm just like, no, I got this.
Anything I touch is magic. Yeah.
And also not getting to a place of desperation because I haven't booked anything in a while. Because it's the exact same thing. Because if I walk into something too confident, it's going to look like crap. And if I walk into something desperate, it's going to look like crap. And just being consistent in the art that I create, and to make myself better, right? To work on, to recognize what the weaknesses are that I may have, and just try to work on those things to just always to make the quality of work that I'm handing out to people better.
Yeah. So this is something I've been thinking a little bit about, which is like the very similar to what you're talking about, which is how to continue on when you don't get external feedback. And do you have any like processes or mindsets around how to keep going when things don't seem like they're going well?
No. Short answer. I do not have a specific process that I use. Whenever I was doing classes are very helpful because you're around other people that you can commiserate with and kind of talk about your successes and losses together. But I think that early on when I started doing this, I forced myself to come to terms with the idea that I'm generally not going to get any feedback on the work that I do. You never hear anything back on an audition unless it's a positive. So like, whether they want a call back or they want to book you for this, right? That's your feedback that you did a good job. And so recognizing that once I do something, I throw it away. So if I have an audition for a movie that I just got today, so I'm gonna have to do it sometime in the next couple of days. I'm gonna have to go and perform it or put it together, put it on tape, and send that. So I'm gonna do the prep work, and then I'm gonna do it. And as soon as I hit send on that tape, I'm gonna throw the sides away, and I'm gonna move that into my completed items, and that thing's gone. It is completely off of my radar until I hear back from them. And so if I hear back from them that they want to have a call back or have a discussion about it, then I'll go back and I'll find the paperwork again. I'll pull it back up. I'll go back and rewatch that video, make sure that I remember what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. If I don't hear back from them, I've let it go. I've thrown it away. It's pointless to try and hold on to it and okay, so I should hear something. They're supposed to shoot it on this date if that's the case, and I should hear something about 5 days before that and try and track it. That just puts unnecessary pressure, right? Because you're going to get to that 5-day point and you're going to be waiting for someone to call you, right? It's like, I'll give you maybe a reference that you'll recognize. Like you go on a date and, you're waiting for that text to come through. So if you go on a date and it seems like it's a good one and you've responded back to them, said, hey, I had a great time, whatever. When you do that, throw it away until you hear from them again.
Yeah, I have a really interesting parallel that's very similar.
Go ahead.
Which I think is the exact same like mental process, which is when I was doing the like approaching and talking to a bunch of girls, I would intentionally give out my number instead of asking them for their number.
Yeah.
Because then when it was the exact same thing. I'm going to give you my number, like that's it. If I hear from you, that's awesome, but I'm not going to like have it in my phone where like there's this message I sent and I'm like waiting on like, oh, is she going to text me back or is she not?
Yeah.
That's all just gone. And I just get to have like a nice little surprise if she does text me.
Yeah, that's right. And if you ever happened on the text and you just, for whatever chance, see a little bubble pop up, like, oh, she's going to, no.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, so maybe it was easier in my time of dating because we didn't text.
Yeah.
It was like legit phone calls. And so, you had the option. You could sit there and sit by the phone and hope that someone's going to call on your landline. Or you just move on and turn your answering machine on. And if they call, then cool.
Yeah.
But it is the way that I try and treat everything. Now, again, as with anything, there are differing levels of success for that. Because there are some projects that I am very excited about and would love to take part in. And so those, maybe it sticks around a little bit longer of hoping And sometimes you get that call back and you're like, oh, I knew I turned the right thing in. And then you finish the callback, and then sometimes you book it, sometimes you don't. But it is each step of that process. It's just you got to let it go. It's a job search. It's really what you're doing.
You're basically on a perpetual job search.
100%. Yeah. There are some people that will argue that the auditioning, this is what Bryan Cranston, I guess, said it, that the audition is the job, right? Mm-hmm. That's the job, is that you're showing them what you can do. And getting the role and going on to set is the reward.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Which is a great way to think about it. That this is where you do your work. And then if they like the work that you do and what you're bringing to it, then you get to go to this other place, this magical place, and play. Like all day. Just get to go and play. Which, that concept is incredible. But it's also, you don't get paid for auditions. So if that's your work, it's not the best job in the world. So I look at it. There's different things that you do as an actor. One, the auditioning piece of it. That one it is very much a job interview. So you presented your resume, and you've presented pictures of yourself. You presented what you've done in the past and clips of what you can do. Then they call you in for that interview. And so you put together your presentation for the interview, and you give it to them. Maybe you send a thank you note to casting for bringing you in. I think that's something that maybe a lot of people don't do. I don't necessarily do it for individual projects, but I absolutely try to, at least once a year, send a note out to the casting directors, the casting assistants, all those folks that have helped give me opportunities. 100%. I sent them a handwritten note that just says thanks. It's not about, hey, I'd love to, work on more stuff with you. It is, you guys are giving me chances, and y'all are like my recruiters. Mm-hmm. Your headhunters that are out there trying to bring me in because you think I'd be right for the job. And that's a big deal to me. And so thank you. But if you hold on to it, just like if you turn your resume into a company, trying to get a new job at that company, and you sit there and you just wait to hear back from that one company, you've got all these other companies that are out there that you could potentially be putting stuff in with as well. You're not. You're so focused on this one thing and whether this is going to be successful or you're going to get that opportunity that you miss potentially 5 other things. That's why it's just do the best I can, show them what it is I'm going to be able to do, and then walk away and let them make that decision. Because at that point, I've got zero control. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not like I can call up production and be like, so let me tell you the story about me as a kid, and maybe that'll help you decide that I'm right for this role. No, they don't care. Right? Once you get to a certain point, maybe life experience is relevant. But right now, all they care about is, did you do a good job? Did you embody whoever this person is in the story? And did you do everything they asked for? Right? And if the answer to those things are yes, then you got a good chance. And then it'll get down to things like, does he look like what we need? And hopefully it doesn't get too much to how many social media followers does he have? Because I don't have enough to make any of the producers care. So, Joe Finfer on Instagram, follow me. Yeah, hopefully it doesn't come to that. I think they've tried it in the past and it's burned them. So hopefully it's not like something that they are going back to again.
Right. What does your dream life look like?
What does my dream life look like? Man. So my dream life is that I think it's just getting to a place where I don't have to, it's a tired phrase, but sweat the small stuff. You know what I mean? Where I'm comfortable enough that, my bills are taken care of and I have time to be able to go out and go to pinballs or to some other place with my daughter, to be able to go out to dinner with my wife. Live a pretty benign, normal life, but still being able to do this stuff, where this is my primary means to that life, right? I'm not looking for stardom. I don't need to make millions doing this, right? I do this because it's something that it fulfills something that had been missing for a very long time. And getting to a place where like I can just have my life, and be able to live my life while doing this. That's the dream life. That, or win like the $1.8 billion lottery and then just not worry about anything anymore.
Yeah, you win that, you could just make all your own movies.
That's right. Yeah, make all the best bad movies I can.
All right, Joe Finfer. Can you tell people you mentioned your Instagram, but you can say it again. Just tell people where to find you.
I primarily use Instagram, social media. So that's Joe Finfer, JoeFinfer. You can check it out. I post whenever I. There's also Zilk Road Comedy, Zilk, like Zilker, a little play on the Silk Road. But Zilk Road Comedy, that's another one that's on Instagram where we have, I think, 5 shorts that we've done, each of increasing quality as we've gone through. Yeah, I don't know. Watch your TV. There'll be commercials, and support local filmmakers. Go and check out the small film festivals, not just Austin Film Fest and South by, but go to the ATX Short Film Showcase, which is at the Ballroom on the second Monday of every month. It's an incredible, like, local filmmaker, local Texas based filmmakers make the shorts that they make. There's tons of these things that are around Austin that will give you an opportunity to meet some of the lesser known creatives of our area, and get to experience some of the art that they're putting out there. It's a lot of cool stuff. So yeah, check those things out. It's worth it.
All right. Awesome, man. Thank you for coming on.
Of course. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Bye, everybody.